Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is Camille Essig. I am host of the Speaker Podcast. This is the podcast where innovators and critics connect. What I need you to do right now is hit that notification bell and subscribe. Follow us. I am on Facebook at the Speaker Podcast. I'm on Instagram at Camille.Essig. And y'all, my website is out there. It's available. You can also email me at CamilleEssig.com. And we also have new digital merchandise on my website at CamilleEssig.com. And we're on YouTube. With that being said, we are having a whole reunion right here. If you've been rocking with me since the beginning of the Speaker Up podcast, you may remember this couple from my streaming days when I was just streaming only, not doing the live. So Gil and Renee, they're back, but this is their first time live with me on the Speaker podcast and not just on the. So we're just excited to have them here and to welcome them back. So please let everyone know who you are and a little bit about what you do.
Hi, my name is Renee.
And I'm Gil from the Rich Relationship Refuge.
And we are marriage mentors. We help people to have a better relationship with themselves, God, and others.
You know, we started doing just the marriage mentoring about 19 years ago. About 19 years ago, because we realized that we didn't have a good example of what it was like being married. And we've been married 35 years. It'll be 36 here in December. And we decided that all we can do is share and give back to what we learned, hoping somebody can glean something from some of the trials and errors and things that we did just to equip them. You know, we got trained to be marriage coaches and counselors, lay counselors through our church and all those things.
Community Bible Church.
So we just wanted to share some of the things that we learned just to give back to some couples, and hopefully that could help them with their relationships.
That's awesome. And also, can you kind of like give us a background as far as like your love journey? How did you all meet? Like, what was that like?
Go ahead. You can start it.
Well, I'm going to share something different about our story because everyone knows that I rolled a pencil off of a desk to get Gil's attention. And so I would like to share one of the things about when we met that summer. We met at a summer job in Detroit. I rolled a pencil off the desk to get his attention, and he responded. But the thing that I think that we've never shared before was
so how old were you when this happened? Because you're saying that's like you're at school or you're at work, like
14 and 15.
14 and 15 in a summer youth program.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so we we were just kids basically.
Yeah.
You know, so those who are out there who say, you know, young love don't last, we don't know about that.
I think it depends on. I don't think it's just the age. I think it's how well you know each other and how well you know yourselves. But the thing about that we've never shared was that we used to catch a bus home together. We used to ride on the city bus because when you work for the city, they would give you this bus pass and you can go ride. That was how you got your transportation to your job.
Mass transit, you know, inner city Detroit.
Yep. And we would always ride on the bus together. And Gil would always sit and he would hold my hand and we would talk to each other. And
at 14.
Yeah, 14, 15.
Yep, she was 14, I was 15.
And he was never like too forward, but I always knew that we were together. And so that's something we've never shared. So
but the other part that we never shared is we broke up that summer, you know, where we were living on the opposite sides of town. And I said, you know what, you may want to date other guys. I may want to date other girls. And I didn't want to cheat on you. So I think we should break up. And we're Bible believers, you know, we love Jesus and everything.
But we weren't saved then.
But Renee just cussed me out, y'all. She let me have it. Boy, she let me have it. Oh man.
But she was standing on business at 14.
Yeah, man. Serious. She was serious. And I thought I was doing the honorable thing by telling her the truth. You know, I didn't want to cheat, you know. So I said, let's just go our separate ways. So then you can. Nah, she wasn't having that.
No,
you know?
So what city was this?
This is in Detroit.
Detroit.
Yep, Michigan.
Okay,
Yep,
Detroit.
We both from Detroit. But I think
what area code is that?
313.
You know, it's funny how everybody goes by the area code, you know.
Yes.
7 mile, 8 mile, 6 mile. If you really from Detroit, you know Woodward, Trowbridge.
You know, people who
Illinois.
You know, it's funny that you say that because it's two things you can tell people from Detroit. It's 313, and we have a catchphrase.
What up, though?
What up, though?
What up, though?
That's the greeting. That's the standard greeting.
So if you want to know, you want to have like some insight on Detroit, you just say, what up, though?
Yeah.
So, okay, my family's originally from Ohio. Okay. Like my mom was from Cleveland. I was born in Columbus. My dad, he's deceased. He's from Dayton. My grandmother's from Dayton.
Okay.
But I have, a couple people I still know there, and they say what up though.
Yeah. Oh, do they?
They're in
Oh, yeah.
Ohio.
Look at it from us. Detroit and Ohio got that rivalry thing going on.
Yes. So
Yeah.
anytime there's football, I'm always rooting for Ohio State by default.
See, and I'm a U of M fan, so I guess we can get off the line now. So,
Because Michigan and Ohio, that's like a big rivalry. So,
oh man, it's huge.
I didn't know
it's
that.
nationwide. Yeah,
Yeah,
people know that.
And it's not just guys. I was at a doctor's appointment in Gwynn, Michigan, and this lady called me a troll.
What?
She said, "Oh, you from Detroit? Oh, you a troll?"
Not the internet trolls.
I said,
Oh my
"What?"
gosh.
They call anybody from beneath the bridge a troll.
Because Michigan is separated by the Mackinac Island Bridge that separates Upper Michigan from Lower Michigan. So
Oh
if you live
no.
below the bridge,
They call
in
you
the
a troll.
lower part of Michigan, they call you a troll.
No, when it's college football, I'm definitely like go Buckeyes. So
Oh well, you know what? It's okay. We won the national title this year, so
that's
I mean,
fine. And then with the military army, with the Air
yeah,
Force, Army, Navy.
yeah,
I'm a Navy girl, so
okay.
Yay!
Yeah,
there's a lot of rivalry going on right here.
Yeah, you're right. But we're gonna be cool because we like each other.
That's
We
right.
Yes.
We
love
got
you guys.
Jesus. Jesus is our connector.
Yes, I like and I love y'all. So it's
Yeah.
all
We
good.
love you.
Yeah.
Look, we know, like, and love you.
Yeah.
Same. So we're gonna dig into this conversation. Then you all have been married for 38 years. Just for those that are not aware,
35.
35.
45.
But we were dating for 3 years. So yeah,
We've been
we've
together
been together.
38.
Yep.
38. Okay, because in my mind I'm saying 38 because that's
Yeah.
just how I know you all, like
Yeah.
38 years.
Right.
So going through those things, people have different backgrounds and things happen in their childhood growing up. How did you all navigate what I call the landmines of love in marriage? Because people have trauma, they have different experiences. So
Absolutely.
what was your journey like as far as managing those spaces, managing those landmines in your marriage?
You want to start?
Now, mind you, when we started dating, like seriously dating, when he broke up with me at 14, then we started really dating for real at 18.
Yeah.
Okay.
So remember, we are 18. We got married at 21. My mom was an addict and she got killed by a serial killer. My mom was never married. So I grew up being raised by kind of everyone in my family. So I had a lot of rejection issues. I had a lot of insecurities about, because my mom was very verbally abusive. So I had a lot of baggage. That being said, I think that the difference between our generation, like we were very resilient because we had to be. If I didn't get things figured out, I didn't have a backup plan. I couldn't say, well, if this doesn't work out, then I'm going to, because I was on my own. I lived on my own at 18. Gil's sister and I were roommates.
Okay.
So I think for us, because we didn't have social media, we didn't have a lot of those things. So you really had to spend a lot of time with yourself. We walked a lot. So I did a lot of thinking. And so I think that I was very aware of things about me that I didn't want to do. So when me and Gil got together, I had already decided some things I didn't want to do.
Mhm.
And so I already had some boundaries for me. And so when we got together, I just saw him as someone who saw me and got me.
Mhm.
And I appreciated that.
Yep. And for me, my parents got divorced when I was younger. So what I did was I realized early in my life I wanted to be married even when I was younger. At that age of 14, 15, I knew I wanted a wife. I knew I wanted to be married. I knew that was an example of how I wanted to be. And I started working on those things, and that little thought stuck in the back of my mind, that I want to be married. So therefore I also knew that there's things that I needed to learn and needed to do in order to be a husband. What it was, I had no idea or how I was going to accomplish it, but that was something that I knew I wanted to do. So when it comes to those landmines, that was something that I think I rethought about and tried and already decided before we even got together, or even before we walked down the aisle, or even got engaged, that I knew what I wanted from the very beginning. I think a part of what some people go through is you have to make up in your mind what you want from a relationship before you actually even get into it. And I think a part of that is about really you knowing you and being consciously aware of your strong suits and your shortcomings and things that you need to grow at. Because how can you be deficient in an area, realizing, let's just say it's communication or how you resolve conflict, and go into a relationship thinking it's going to fix itself? There are things that you're going to have to do and figure things out,
And you and I really, I was the kind of person, I had a list. I was big on lists, pros and cons. What's the pros? What's the
Mhm.
cons? What's the goods? What's the bads? And you and I, we talked about everything. I mean, he was my best friend. We talked about what we wanted to do when we got married and when we had kids, and who was your favorite person and who was my favorite person, and you know, how is your credit? How is my? And we were 21. So all I can say is some of it was the way God wired us, but I also believe it was his hand on our life because I believe he knew us in our mother's wombs. And so I think that that was a big part of it was God's hand on our life and the way he pre-wired us.
Wow. So in that space, particularly Renee, with your background growing up with everything with your mom, how do you feel like your ability to receive love or times where you had to trust? Because okay, so biblically speaking, the husband, the man is the provider.
Mhm.
And so in that space when he's trying to provide, was there any pushback or you felt like I'm comfortable trusting him to lead because this is all I have and I'm kind of putting my eggs in one basket. Did you create room for him to lead? And if not, or what happened for you allow that to happen?
I've always been good at balancing budgets and managing money. So even before me and Gil got together, I already had my own check account. Already had, it wasn't a lot of money in it. But I already had things, I already knew how to run a house before I got married. And so
Mm,
when we came together, we were, Gil knew what he was good at. I knew what I was good at. And so because we both really didn't have a lot, I think the thing that was really made me feel confident with giving up what the career I had was because we made a decision while we were dating that we'd never let money come between us. We were on the
okay.
Belle Isle Bridge,
Mhm.
and we said that we would never let money come between us. And I was making more money than Gil because I was a hairstylist and he was an airman. But
Actually, I wasn't even in the
yeah, that's
military
right.
yet. Yeah,
Yeah, you were,
I was just working a job.
yeah,
Yeah,
when we made that
yeah,
commitment.
yeah,
But then when you joined the Air Force,
yeah.
and so I think that because we were both so young, we didn't really have a lot.
We were broke.
There was really no pushback because it wasn't like I was really giving up a whole lot.
And I think even from the environment that Renee kind of grew in, she had strong women examples in her life as far as being very, you know,
Dominant.
dominant, but also there was no husbands around or anything like that. Not, and so she was very independent already, even from raising her siblings and things like that. So she really over the time had to start relinquishing, not that she pushed back as far as like me being the head of the house and we used to fight about who's going to do what. But I think as we really got involved with our relationship with the Lord and those types of things, there was a shift and a change, where I didn't have my dad to give me an example of what it was like to be the head of the house. He
Mm,
wasn't a believer in his early life, even when we was kids. But later on, I realized that there was just some things that I was going to have to step up and do as being the head of the house. And Renee has always been easy to relinquish some of the rights and responsibilities that I felt I should take on as the head, of being that household leader.
And I think our
yeah.
temperaments have a lot to do with that.
Okay.
I think that a lot of it is temperament.
Mhm.
I do have a strong personality, but I also respected Gil a lot and I admired him. So it was never really a struggle, except women we pray, we want him to be the lead, we want him to be the lead until he tells you no.
How do
And
you
so
handle the no? Like as the wife, how did you handle the no? Or how do
in
you
the
handle the
beginning,
no?
I didn't do good with the nose. I would have temper tantrums. I would fold my arms and close my eyes, just ride in the car in total silence. And then the Lord started teaching me that is rebellion.
Mm,
If He asks you to do something and you silently decide to not do it, then it's rebellion. And I was like, oh wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't know I was being rebellious. I just thought I was just giving him the silent treatment. I didn't realize how negative that was.
I knew it was a
Uh,
silent treatment. But but I also realized that even in our earlier relationships where we went through the struggles, just like everybody does, trying to figure things out, who's doing what in the relationship. But she was always not from a rebellious point of we would have these knockdown, drag out arguments about certain things or anything like that. Communication was the key. If we talked about everything, like she said a little bit earlier, that is the key to where if you're thinking about something, or I would always say it's okay to question for understanding, but when you question when a decision has to be made, then that's a whole different ball game. If you need to understand why I say we should do A or B, then
And talk
it's
about it.
my responsibility to explain it, what my mindset is and what I'm thinking about, versus it's because I said so. No,
Mhm.
that don't fly. That won't work,
Mhm.
especially in a relationship. Even, and I didn't have that type of mindset even in the beginning of our relationship, because I wanted her input. I wanted to know what she's thinking because we were so young. I had doubts and uncertainty about things and question things, but it's always better if you got a buy-in of the person you're in relationship with when you have to make a big decision, like say moving across country or changing jobs or changing roles or even changing careers and things like that. You want that counsel.
That's good. So as the husband,
Mhm.
do you feel like her trusting your leadership just reaffirms you even more? Because I think in this generation, there's such a testing of the wheels, like an ego back
Yeah.
and forth that maybe they don't understand that concept. Because so can you kind of unpack a little bit more when her trusting your decision on something, and if it doesn't work out later, fine, but just her just having
Right.
your back in that decision, like as a husband, can you kind of unpack what that
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
is for
Absolutely.
men?
Absolutely. That's a great point, because a part of it is being consistent. I think I had to establish how to be consistent first in decisions that I were making, not having second thoughts, not going back and forth and vacillating between do A or do B, and not having the certainty about things. No, you can't have certainty about everything, but when a decision comes up, you have to really decide, hey, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I want to do. And I wanted to make it from a standpoint of, if I'd make a decision and we are in this together, I'm going to always be thinking about us and not just me and not just what I want and what I want to pursue or even do from that standpoint. So I think it's a part of being consistent in making those decisions, but also being comfortable in your role as the leader of the household too, or
Mhm.
even the leader in the relationship. And I think Renee made it easy because, again, we talked about it. I think that is so key and so pivotal about, having a good, healthy balance in your relationship, because you got to have that foundation of communication. It is foundational to everything.
And then for you, Renee, just part two of that question, what was that like for you? Like once you're like, okay, I can really trust him in that decision, and actually it made things easier versus I want to say fighting against him, but not being rebellious as the word that you use.
Mhm.
Like as a whole, did that make the environment easier,
Yeah,
or you kind of find your stride or your rhythm, so to say?
I think a part of it is, even when we were dating, if you said he was going to do something, he did it. He said
Okay.
he's going to be somewhere, he was there. So he showed me that I could trust him. And so trusting him with the small things made it easier for me to trust him with the big things. Yes, I still had insecurities. Yes, I still had self-esteem issues. But I tried to lean into, he hasn't given me a reason not to trust him.
That's
And
good.
so I
Like
think
the
that too.
receipts. He gave you receipts.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Exactly. He had a big old, he was his job, he would go, he'd be gone for 3 days and home for 3 days. He had this big, huge box with all these letters and his journals and everything. And he said, you can go through it, you can read it. I don't care. I was like, really? And I found a journal, because Gil is a writer. He likes to journal. And I was reading his journal, and I did have my doubts about if he really was as in love with me as I was in love with him. And when I
Yeah.
read his journal and I saw how much I was in his thoughts and in his preparation, and he's talking about me, and I was like, oh my gosh, he really loved me. And we were
Oh,
already married. So I think that the more that your actions and your words line up, the easier it is for you not to get pushed back.
Yeah, I think a lot of men, particularly because I listen to a lot of narratives within my
Mhm.
demographic, and there's this whole thing about submission, but they're not getting is women want to, but they need security, they need
Oh
safety,
yeah.
and
Mhm.
provision goes beyond just having money,
Yep.
meaning
Yeah.
you need to provide a space that is emotionally safe,
Mhm.
psychologically safe, spiritually safe, and like you said, being consistent. And in
Yes.
those things, it makes it easier for a woman to submit or follow the man's lead, and not as a um
Author-
dogmatic,
yeah,
Right.
authoritarian type.
Right.
yeah, macho or misogynistic, misogyny or
Yeah.
mentality, but actually in a healthy, spiritually, emotionally safe place that once the man provides that space, then the woman can, as we say, walk in her feminine energy more as she should and not have all this other stress. Um, and on the woman's part, when we see a man not being consistent, we get tight, you know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And in the back of our mind, we have like, okay, just in case, we start going into break glass in case of emergency mode,
Right.
because
You start
he is,
planning your exit.
yes,
I think about even
the
from
egress
guys.
is real.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think over time, if guys start thinking about with a mindset of it's me first,
Mm,
I should be leading the tone. I should be setting the tone, not just even if you're in a dating environment, that doesn't mean you have to plan every date or anything like that. But you should be taking the lead in those kind of roles and those responsibilities. Not that you are dictate, like you said, from a dictatorial type of position, but for one that you're saying, hey, babe, this is what I'm thinking about. What do you think about this? Hey, how about we do this or do that? So when you come with that mindset, and let her know you are a safe place and I'm there to serve Renee first. I'm putting myself second. We always tell our couples, if you are not ready to put this person ahead of yourself in every area of your life, don't get married.
Mhm.
Continue to date until you are ready to make that change or that shift in your mindset. Because if not, you're going to always think about break glass in case of emergency, because I have to always look out for myself. I have to
Mhm.
always be thinking, does this person really have my back? Does this person really there for me?
Yeah.
When the rubber meets the road, you want to know that this person is going to be with you regardless of how the situation goes.
That's really good. And then in that space where there is trust, there is provision, there is submission, and you're beginning to find this rhythm, did at any point did her past, like with her mom and things, did that scare you away? Because again, speaking to my generation, because that is
Right.
primarily my audience, any signs of any little thing, if it's not a perfect,
Oh yeah.
boxy relationship, it's like, oh, I'm out. But everyone has something.
Oh
So
yeah.
Yeah.
did you just come to the fact like, okay, I love this person because we all have baggage. It's just a matter as far as who you're willing to unpack with. Was that the case? Or did you say like this in spite of
Oh
I
yeah.
love this person anyway?
Absolutely. When you think about it, like you said, everybody is going to have, whether it's childhood traumas or bad experiences or tragedy or
Or
whatever
debt or
yeah, all those things
extra
come into
kids.
play. You have to make that decision that this person is not the sum total of one experience or one bad situation.
Or a chapter of life? Yeah.
Yeah, if you
Right.
try to lump this person in on one bad decision or one mistake that they made and decide, oh, I'm out, then you're going to be alone. you
Mhm.
know
Mhm.
and one of the things that we talked about earlier is we talked about everything. I knew her whole history. I knew her baggage. I knew her childhood issues. I knew the things that would happen to her in her past, and I met her family. So you don't have to tell me that you have dysfunctional in your family. It's obvious when you're around people, you see it.
Oh,
But I don't make that my focus. I think when people tend to make that the focus, all the negative and all the bad, you totally dismiss the good, because
Yeah.
it's easy to see the bad things in everybody. But it takes you a lot more effort to say, you know what, in spite of, I'm going to be there.
Yeah. And we're not talking about if you're being abused or if you're being mistreated or if you're being lied to. We're talking about give people the space to be human and you be human. And so we always say, let's be broken together. Nobody is going to come. And my godmother should always say, men are like a plate of cookies, and all of them got a bite mark in it. You just got to decide how big of a bite out of the cookie you willing to live with.
Oh, that's good.
Because if we think that everybody, you're going to be looking for that perfect cookie, it doesn't exist. There is
Yeah.
no perfect
Yeah.
person. There is nobody that is going to be have high emotional intelligence, high credit score, low fat body fat, it's I think that some of it is just unrealistic. And I think sometimes the younger generation says that our generation, we didn't have standards. It's not that we didn't have standards, it's just that the standards were not things that could be bought. You
It
know,
wasn't surface and
it was
materialistic. I
character.
think a
I'm
lot of it
looking
now
at
is social
character.
media based as well
Oh
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
um,
definitely. Because you're looking at people's snapshot. You're looking at one moment in time as whatever they decide to post. And if you think that is the sum total of who they are, you're sorely deceived.
Yeah.
mm, that's really good. So going further into this conversation, before we go on, if you are enjoying this conversation, please like, comment, and share, and be sure to hit the notification bell on YouTube at the Speaker Podcast. Follow me, Camille Essick, on Instagram at Camille.Essick. As we get into the next part of this conversation, Gil Renee, we see a lot of things that have gone on through since the pandemic. A lot of relationships are falling apart, or what I call lazy relationships because of technology, where it's a lot of texting. There's not a lot of phone conversation. It's just texting pages, and it's like, why not pick up the phone? Why not
Say that
schedule
again.
things?
People do that.
And it's like, but you want this amazing, healthy, connected relationship, but from a communication standpoint, even an effort standpoint, with the dating, courting process, it's lazy. It's
Right.
effortless. There's no we have a lot of men now that want to be catered to. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm not catered to a grown man.
Yeah.
Like, I guess I'm old school, and I just believe, and not totally old school in some ways, but more old school with some progressive thoughts. But it's just
Yeah.
like, I was just raised, you don't chase a man, don't be all up in a
Yeah.
man's face.
Yeah.
Right.
That's just the southern, girl in me. So that's just that's just not who I am. And I
Right.
know there's some women out here that are shooting their shot. You see women on their knees proposing to men, and and
Yeah,
so it's just like
yeah.
weeding out all this foolishness. Like, where is the true line when it comes to effort and communication and
Mhm.
pursuit in a relationship?
Yeah.
One of the things that I don't know, I think I may have told you this. Something the Lord was telling me was, if our relationship is my responsibility, then I should be by myself.
Oh, say that
A
again for
re-
the people in the back.
if our relationship is only my responsibility, then I should be by myself.
Mm,
One of the things about Gil, it was always both of us working towards pursuing each other. He called me, I call him. He's playing stuff, I plan stuff. It was always, there was always reciprocity. And at the time I was too young, I didn't know that. But as I've gotten older, I start to look at the relationships where I'm doing everything. If I got to do everything, why do I need you?
mm,
So I think that people need to understand that when you say that you want a relationship with someone, you can't be lazy. You can't rely on social media only. You can't rely on texting, because to me, my whole thing is, if it's longer than an inch, that's a phone call. If you got 25 lines in a text message, that's a phone call.
And I think even with social media today, sometimes people rely on that to convey what they really are thinking. Yes, it may convey a thought, but there's so many other parts to communication. It's body language, it's inflection, it's tone, it's message, it's understanding. It's so many other elements that
And
go
it's your
along with
sentiments and your motives.
communication that you can't get in a text message
Mhm.
or just through some quick blurt on a voicemail or something like that. There's never going to be an exchange with direct communication, just like what
Yeah.
we're doing right now, that you can substitute.
Yeah.
And when people use that as their method, like you said, laziness, I call it complacency. If you're
yeah.
already complacent in your relationship and don't want to put forth any effort into pursuing this person that caught your eye or engaged you intellectually, or you feel like that is emotionally healthy, that should be a natural draw. And as a man, we like to hunt. I'm not a hunter. I'm from Detroit. but I know how to shop as an example. So when you chasing down a new pair of kicks or something like that, a new suit or a new tie, or a new shirt, whatever, you're gonna go all over and look for it. Well, we like to hunt. And when women, I think, sometimes make it too easy, that's a part of where that complacency comes in, to
Mm,
where all of a sudden I don't have to try as hard. If I know I got X amount of women gonna propose to me, like you mentioned earlier, or engage with me, they get lazy. And I, just like you said, I've seen that, whether you look at it on a feed or even just see it in natural life, because I'm around, that demographic of, I would say, 18 to 30 in my
yeah,
daily life in a work environment on a military base. So I see it
right.
every day.
Yeah, that's crazy. And something that you said, and I would love for both of you all to interject in this thought. When you're just being lazy or complacent and there's just the texting and you don't have the physical presence, you don't have the
Mhm.
inflection, you don't have the body language, it desensitizes your discernment to when they lie.
Mhm.
Because if you're talking and physically engaging with somebody every day and they're always communicating with you in a certain way, the moment they deviate,
Yep.
you pick
Red
up on it
flag.
immediately.
Yep. Red
Mhm.
flag.
Yeah.
I
Who
agree. We're military, so we've had times where before FaceTime and before texting, where we literally had to write letters to each other. And
snail
so
mail.
yeah, we had to send
Snail mail.
mail. And
Yeah.
I still have my letters, I have a box of letters. Um, I think that the more you're able to communicate your thoughts in writing, not in a text, but in letters and in journaling, I think you know what you want and need. And so that way it comes across to the other person. Because when
Mm,
you write something down, some thought has to go into that. So I think that because people don't do the face to face and they don't spend time together, and because people just do these little bitty short little like blurbs, I think that it is like you said, your discernment does become dull because you don't know their body language. You can't look at their face. You can, 'cause that's what I always say. Send me when people say, "Oh, I'm dating so and so," I'm like, send me their picture. I want to look at
right.
their eyes.
Man, that's the second time I've heard that in the last like 2 weeks.
Send me a picture. I want to look at
Somebody
their
was
eyes.
like, it's in their eyes.
It is. It's always in their eyes.
Right. Right.
There is a darkness that you can see in people's eyes, and it's for real, and it makes me sad.
And I think sometimes you can't ignore, you made a good point, that if we've been dating and all of a sudden I deviate from my normal pattern, that should be an indicator. That should be a yellow light. That should be something that you bring up as a point of engagement or point of conversation. Like, hey, is everything okay? What's going on? This is
Mhm.
something that I noticed. Not in an accusatory manner, but just saying,
Like
hey,
you
this
checking
is
in.
something that I see. Is everything okay? Not necessarily with you, like you did something wrong. You don't have to own that part, but just saying that, hey, I'm watching our relationship enough to know that when something is different, I'm going to point it out. And it's up to us to decide that, hey, this is requires more investigation. This requires us to dig deeper into this as a couple, as two individuals that's deciding, hey, dating is preparation for marriage. So if you're dating someone, you should be screening them just like you trying to get that Fortune 500 job as a new career. You should be screening them like you getting hired. Not that it's a job interview, but you should be having that same type of mindset that I'm preparing to spend the rest of my life with this person. So I need to really dig in and really learn this person and learn their language and their mannerisms and their inflections and all the things that are important in establishing good, healthy communication.
That's good because you do want to be with someone that can weather the storm with you because things in
Oh
life
God,
will happen. As we say, life will life.
yeah,
And the
life be
first
life.
time, it thunders or storm comes and they're like, "Oh, I'm out." It's like
Yeah,
so you do want to kind of vet that person, as you said, um, like you would for a Fortune 500 company,
yeah.
because
You got to
life
be
is going to
resilient.
happen.
Yeah.
Yes,
And I
and
think
then
that's
also
also
too how they respond. Like, are you gonna get mad and punch the wall, or are you gonna lay in the bed and not bathe for 3 days? Like, we need to
Yeah,
know these things. So those things do matter.
and something else I looked at that I noticed, and I've always loved old people. I've always been a person to sit there and listen to the old women, listen to them talk with my ears open and my
ear
mouth
Yes.
hustling.
closed.
Yes, we love the mothers and the unks.
Oh, just love them. And I would sit there and I would listen to them, and they would say, "Baby, you better watch how he treat his mama." Because if you treat his mama bad, he gonna treat you bad too. I watched how Gil cared for his mother and his sister and his grandmother, not in a mama's boy way, but in a he is the man of his family. He is going to look out for them. So if he's doing that for them, then he's going to do that for me. And so you can't ignore those things. All the things that you were told when you were little and you're growing up, those things may seem out of date, but the relationships that are successful are based on those old fashioned, outdated, antiquated principles.
Yes, even
And
in
so
those
many.
there are outliers because people do have different family dynamics.
Oh yeah,
So there are
absolutely.
instances, you know, and you do have to understand that as well. But I
Yeah,
definitely understand what you mean by that.
yeah,
Oh yeah,
because everybody has. I hate saying the word everybody because
most people.
most people, if you have good examples, whether it was your direct father or uncle or coach or
Yeah,
somebody
mine
in
was
your
my
life.
grandparents, like, that they
Yeah,
are, like, one of my what I call templates, and I have a couple
yeah,
people like, I look at you all, my
Mhm.
grandparents are both deceased, but they were, like, another template for me. So I do have a couple people in my life that I can draw from. I'm going, "Okay," like, you know, so I
yeah,
guess I've seen good marriages and been around them. They were married until my grandmother died. My grandparents were married for 52 years.
yeah. And
Wow.
and you go kind of goes back to what you asked originally. The reason why we do Rich Relationship Refuge is because we want to not be forced mentors for anybody, but we want to share some of the things that we have learned over the time that we've been together, good and bad, that hopefully somebody can glean from and use as a template or an example to go from, or at least starting point. Because unfortunately, we've had relationships, or I've seen relationships in my own family that have spanned years and years and years, but
Mhm.
it's not a conscious effort to share those things, those principles about what made you successful in your relationship or in your marriage with people naturally.
Right.
So we are conscious about opening up, when we go live or we talk about things, and like being here on your show, we're just sharing the things that we know. Do we think we have all the answers? Absolutely
No.
not. But we can give you a reference point or something to start with versus an empty sheet of paper.
Yeah. And
Right.
not just from our training, but from what we really apply in our real life. And I think that's
Mhm.
important for us is that Jesus didn't send a track, he came into the earth. People need someone to walk alongside them that they can touch and talk and know. And I think that that is what discipleship is really about. And that's what mentorship is, walking alongside people, not just because we have books and we have all that, but it's just something about being face to face with people that, like Gil said, there's no substitute for face to face.
Right.
That's good. And, I've been connected with you all since 2019.
Yeah.
And throughout that time, every time that we've spoken and, you know, Renee will call me and I'll call her, we'll be on the phone for 2, 3 hours. And sometimes, you know, you'll come in like, "Oh, hey, Gil," you know,
Yeah.
but every time I've spoken with you all, there's not ever been a time where I didn't learn something
Oh,
or
No.
we
you
love you. We learn from
didn't
you
pour
too.
something into me. And it's always been a learning experience. And so I can vouch for that and say definitely, yes, they do.
Y- You
Thank
know,
you, as you always say, thank you for the poor.
yeah,
Camille, thank you for the poor.
we try, and that's all we can do is just put it out there. So even just for anybody who's watching this or listening to this, you can share, you can pour into somebody something, and that's what we should always be doing, is trying to give instead of receive.
Because I think that success without a successor is failure. Who are
Oh,
you taking with you to the next level?
yes.
How are you pouring into the next generation, the next couple, your next neighbor, your next cousin? How are you making a difference? How are you duplicating what God put in you into somebody else?
Yep.
Awesome. I cannot wait to bring you all back because I definitely want to continue this conversation with
Oh,
you all.
absolutely.
But
Anytime.
before we wrap things up, I do want to say thank you everyone for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Also send me an email there at the speakerpodcast@gmail.com. And before we get to those things, Gil and Renee, do you have like a little nugget or gem that you can leave with the viewers and listeners? And then also, where can people reach you on social media?
I think the most important gem that we can leave with them is that in order to love somebody else, you got to love yourself. And that is going to come from your relationship with God.
Mhm.
So, of all the training and tools that you can get, it starts with your relationship with you and God. And from that, you build on that.
Yep. And I mean, that says it really, really well. And if you want to reach out to us or find us, you can find us at Rich Relationship Refuge. You can good, hit it on Google. We'll pop up with the podcast. We have a podcast. We have go lives. We have the YouTube videos. Renee does an
And we
amazing
have a
job.
new book and a new app, and it's available too.
So Rich Relationship Refuge. The new book is the Singles Blueprint. So
for dating and marriage.
So we put it out there.
Awesome. Again, thank you all again. As I always say, like you say, thank you for the pour. And y'all, we're gonna be off next week just for a little break, and then we'll be back for the following week. Only because next weekend is my birthday. That's why. Yes, my birthday. Yes. So with that being said, hold tight on Gil Renee. Everybody, this is Camille Essick. I'm host of the Speaker Podcast. This is the podcast where innovators and creators connect. Be blessed, and Lord willing, I'll see you on the other side. Good night.
Night.
Good night.